Beverly and Leslie. So happy and honored to pair these two wonderful individuals who
Mhm.
do so much on LinkedIn for so many, and so much good comes from it. With that said, if it's 11 a.m. Eastern Time, it's the Hour of Empower live stream on YouTube and LinkedIn. The word of the day is progress, just in case anybody wants to think about what progress means to them and how relevant we can be to your comments. So we really depend on direction. With that said, I'll turn it over to Beverly. Beverly's our Tuesday person. And Beverly, why don't you bring us up to date, and love to hear your initial thoughts on progress.
Okay. First of all, thank you, Don. And I love being on with you, Leslie, because it's going to make for a live and powerful and exciting show with all kinds of information flying. And this is where I'm hoping that people are also going to contribute, and because it's all about you. And progress is a word that, you know, for me, it comes to mind progress, right? What is it? It sounds like it's a lot of work. It sounds like it's something we have to really move forward in, progress, kill it, do it, right? And do more. And if it's from me, I am saying it's never good enough, right? There's always more to do. There's always another mountain. There's always something that you can do more of.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not a good way to look at it, because if you're doing that, you're never good enough. You're always hitting that other mountain. You're always going higher. You're always going stronger. And so we always have to look back too. And we always have to say, see how far I've come. And that's a check. You have to put yourself in check. At least that's me. I always have to put myself in check, because I'm that energizer bunny, and I'm the one that's going to keep on going, and I'm going to say it's not good enough and I have to do more, and I'll take this course and I'll have to blah blah blah, and get these people, and it's like, whoa, never stop. So you have to balance. You have to say, what is it all about? How
Mm.
much progress, in quotes, do you really need? Are you in competition with someone else? Are you in competition with yourself? What
Mm-hmm.
is progress anyway? So you have to really put yourself in balance and put yourself in check, and understand that too much work will set you back, not forward. It'll literally set you back. You need to have that relaxation. And this is what we were just talking before, Leslie, when you were saying, you know, I have something to do. I'm going to be putting out my live show. This is something I'm committed to. I'm committed to all the days I'm doing it. But hey, it's Thanksgiving. And I have a family too. And these are things that I have to do with my family. And that matters to me. But you people matter too. So let's figure out a way how we can make a show so that you're not going to miss it and that I'm not going to miss my family too. That's balance. And these are the things that we have to put into our lives all the time. And I think we make more progress by slowing down, putting things in check, and moving forward. Leslie, up to you.
Well, thank you. Thanks for letting me squeeze in and make a man sandwich here with Donald. So, as you were speaking about progress and doing too much, what occurred to me is progress also doing less. So, while, so sometimes we can be, how do I want to say this? Sometimes when we do too much and we choose to do less because we need a rest, isn't that also progress? So, like as you said, it's individualized, right? And it's relative to each person. What do we think progress is? And I like what you said about that we're doing too much. That I think is the default, right? That we think, well, we're doing too much. And is that progress? No. Progress is really the law of vibration, which is growing, disintegrating, growing, disintegrating. So maybe it's 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. Out
Always.
of confusion comes order. So if one of us creates, he's shaking his head no and smiling. I got to tell you, Paul said he has more fun watching your expressions, Dawn, than listening to what we have to say. But here's the thing. So we're either growing or disintegrating. If we get a concept that's confusing, we don't take any action. So we're kind of stopped. But if we sit with it, clarity will occur. Out of confusion will come order if you choose to sit with it, or you could choose not to and not to look at it right now. But either way, you're moving up in awareness by learning and growing. I mean, we're not static robots. Or there are moments when we're decreasing, right? Or slipping back, right? And so it's either like this, or it could be the law of rhythm, which is the wave, right? Right. So, but the point is that it's never static. You never actually reach, right? Anything. You continue living until you die. And then when you die, all progress stops.
Everything stops, Leslie. Okay, it's it. That's done. Can I just add, just before you, Dawn, because I'm just dying to do it. Progress is, look, I asked permission and I'm doing it, right? Sorry.
Okay, do it and then apologize if required.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like progress is you're moving forward, but then it gets all messy in the middle because you really don't know what you're doing, and that's kind of what you're saying. So
that's confusion.
Exactly.
Right.
It's the confusion. It's the, am I doing it right? And and stepping back because you're not sure of where you're going.
Yes.
And then you move forward. It's never these giant leaps.
That's
it's always this, I'm taking a step and then blah, 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 and then slowly we see the light. Dawn.
Yeah, well, when you look at progress.
Well, thanks, John. Beverly, did you have something? No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead, Dawn.
This is getting to be too much fun.
There's only 5 of us, so what can I say, right?
Well, when you're talking about progress, it's all context, right? How do you measure? When do you measure? When does a measurement make a difference? Because you're always looking at, well, I started here and here's where I am. How much distance have I covered? How many people have I interacted with? And at a certain point, I look at doing this show every day of having new conversations about what this show is with people who have opinions. So it's not like someone's serving and someone's receiving, everybody's circulating and trying to come up with an optimum experience where now everybody could make a lot of progress at the same time with a lot of other people willing it or having purpose towards it. So the key is how. And the other thing about knowledge share and other people is it's easier to measure around people who are doing the same thing you're doing, right? If you're doing ceramics, it's easy to look around, see where everybody is with their elephant or whatever they're painting, right? And the same thing here is everybody starts to understand it's hard work. So hard work is essential for progress or more progress or better progress. Now it doesn't mean, but you see, when people think of hard work, they think of discomfort. They think of overextending themselves instead of more intensive focused
So
work.
it's the word hard that we immediately perceive as a challenge. And so, what's another word? Is it diligence? Is it discipline? Is it focus? None of those words.
Well, maybe challenging would be more of a word than hard because you're working with and against something possibly. When it's hard, it just goes in hard and it just
Right,
gets harder. And when
right.
people think I've got to do a lot of hard work, people tend not to like that element. But if one says, if you look at it like crossing a bridge, right? If you can get over this, right, you can find
Mhm.
yourself where you don't have to do this hard stuff anymore,
Yeah,
right? So it's,
for sure, for
yeah.
sure.
So
You
Beverly,
know,
we've got to,
oh, well,
I
when
know,
we take a look at just even the word work, it seems hard. Forget hard work, just work. But I
yeah,
was looking also at Carl's statement here from an entrepreneurial perspective. You'd break things down in steps. All of us need to break everything down in steps
Well,
because
those are
otherwise
processes.
it's insurmountable. And I found this on my desk and I said, hey, this is perfect. This is it. This is the mountain, right? We see that mountain. And you can say, how am I going to get there? Well, how are you going to get there? There we go. Baby steps. And you
Oh,
fall
yeah.
back and you move on. And it's not easy, but that mountain is challenging. And before you get to the mountain, you have to get lessons in mountain climbing. You have to do the baby steps. You have to do small hills before you do mountains. And then you also have to take a look and say, wow, back at such and such a time, I couldn't even get to here. So
Mhm,
you have to celebrate your wins. And
mhm.
when you celebrate your wins, you can have the passion to move farther. If you don't, that mountain, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, it's huge.
Right, right. It's your
So just
purpose. It's why you're climbing
it's
the
your
mountain.
purpose.
Why are you climbing the
Absolutely.
mountain? Are you climbing the mountain for notoriety? Are you, for whatever reason, it has to be compelling enough that you don't give up, that you
Yeah,
are disciplined and motivated enough to stay with it, to not be
exactly.
discouraged, right, until you achieve the thing. So
Yeah,
the original purpose, the reason, the why must outweigh the fact that you don't know how.
yeah. That's
Because
where your
you
passion
don't
is.
know how you're going to get up that mountain. You can take the lessons, but the truth is, until both feet and hands are on that mountain, you're not going to know where you will be given,
Mhm,
right,
mhm.
the next step once you've committed to the mountain. Yeah.
Yep, yep. And when you fall and when you break a leg, are
Oh,
you going to stop mountain climbing? Okay.
well, you
That's
just
another
did.
thing. If you
Well,
have a passion, you're going to keep climbing, right? And if you don't, you're going to say mountain climbing is not for me. But you don't have to be hostile about the mountain. You can say it's just not for me. Dawn, we have two
well,
women here that are taking over.
no, no problem. You know
time's
what?
up, Donald. Beverly, did you have something else you wanted to share?
No, no, no. Let's give
Well,
Donald a chance.
yeah, well, I'm going to introduce Harvey
Oh,
to
Okay.
yes.
the
Oh,
couple.
Harvey's
yes.
here.
What a trio today, Beverly, Leslie, and one and only Donald Cohen. Thank you very
Yeah.
much. Progress is key with definite purpose. I want to applaud Harvey for his franchise show that follows right after this. It was
Awesome.
just rated #1 franchise event out of 80 events. So hats off
Fantastic.
to Harvey. And
Fantastic.
he's got a
Oh, it
waiting
is
list.
such a boring subject, too.
What? Oh, no, no.
To me, to
Franchising.
me, to me.
Yeah, well, anyways, back to Harvey. Harvey says all progress starts with a step. While I agree you need training, that first step comes from courage. Sometimes progress is just a step and the journey is unknown, and you never know
Exactly.
when the light shows up. when the
Yeah.
door opens. You don't know how close you are. You know, when you're lost, if you're lost by 10 miles or 10 feet, you feel just as lost until you're found,
Mhm.
right? But you could be a step away. And I think for progress to be effective and sustainable, you need the right support going into a challenge, right? If you've got the financial wherewithal, if you've got the family support, if you got all that stuff, it'll keep you in the game versus fighting one fight inside the game, one fight outside the game, and it gets like, hey, I can't deal with it. But you know you shouldn't have to make a choice, and that's what do you have provisioned for the journey? How much time do you have? Right? If you quit your job today and think LinkedIn tomorrow is going to find you a new one, forget about it. Right? You got to give yourself whatever it takes,
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
I think people, when they look at progress, they forget where they were when they started.
Mhm.
They were a lot less experienced then, right? They were less confident, had less resources that they've developed. But you know what? Progress doesn't come fast enough for some people. You know, they don't like baby steps. And if they can't do giant steps, they leave the game, right? Because they're more into excitement, right? They're into a lottery ticket versus slow but sure. Comments are a little screwed up today. Kelly wrote me that she's done 2 comments and they don't show. So I'm flipping back between Restream, StreamYard, events, non-events that give you so much stuff to do and so little information on how to do it.
Mhm.
Anyways, Harvey comes back with, haha, you're right, but it's up to the storytellers to make the tale interesting. If 10 people go to
Yes.
a party, you only have one interesting story, but it's the same party. Well, you got to bring the energy and excitement, whatever else you bring, right? If
Yes.
you don't come here with a full head of steam, enthusiasm, excitement, confidence, no one's going to believe you,
Yeah.
right?
And,
If,
and and to Harvey's point, it is all about story. We each and every one of us have a story.
Mhm.
And if you're relating to that story, that's why on my podcast, and now it's live streaming, it's only story. And the stories are empowering. And Leslie, you were on the podcast, okay? You were out there on Aging with Purpose and Passion, and listen to Leslie, because what a story, okay? You know more about people through their story. Now, if you can relate to that story, great. So, in other words, if you can relate to franchising or not, you can always get something out of the story,
Of course.
because
Yeah.
everything has a story. And the progress that we make is really a personal journey. It's like, wow, look at what I did. And what we do is we have to look back to realize what we did. Other words, to my point, I have a whiteboard that gives me my goals. And of course, I write them, right? But if I didn't look back, I would continuously be writing other goals and saying, I did nothing last month. I
Mhm.
did nothing for the past 3 months, because
Mhm.
you're always moving forward. So that's where you have to put those checks and balances. And what is progress? And you have to look at it. We want more, Dawn, to your point. We want more progress, and progress takes time. So if we don't appreciate those little tiny steps, we fall off that mountain. We start
Mhm.
saying, I cannot do it, or it's too challenging, because we're going to look at the guy that's going to be going right up the mountain who has years of experience. And so we
Mhm.
have to not be in such competition with others, but start seeing, where do we come from? What's our journey about? How long have we been on LinkedIn? You know, you can't take a show like Dawn that's been on every single day for over a year and expect the same results as soon as you just go. You know, and even now we're learning, we're growing on all directions. So it's like progress has to be a slow process, and it's a slow baby steps that get you there. Wesley,
Yeah,
Dawn, share.
Um, well,
Leslie, go right ahead.
do I get to say something now?
Right,
Okay.
right now.
So let me just say about Harvey's show. So I had a paradigm shift because I went to his first, or when I went to his shows, one of the first ones, I did it to support him. But I thought, oh, franchising, right? But however, it turned into the most amazing conversation. I was actually able to be part of it, and the stories, right? So I was sort of joking in terms of that. That wouldn't be my first choice, right? Then, but because I went, I was able to do a little shift. Now, here's a story. So this whole progress thing is relative. A really good story about completing the climb of the mountain, if you will, comes out of Think and Grow Rich. During the gold rush days, R.U. Darby borrowed money from his family and went for panning and mining for gold. It was 1849, and he borrowed a lot of money, and he set up shop, had a claim, started mining gold, making money, right? Everything was going super great for him. He was making progress, money in the bank, being able to pay back his family. And then the process stopped. So the gold vein dried up, and this is what separates the men from the boys, and which changed R.U. Darby's life to the point, moving forward, that he was one of the top salespeople in life insurance that did over $1 million. He never let this stop him again. So this is a story 3 feet from gold. So what happened was there was no gold vein now, and all this money he owed. So he finally, gave up, and he got a hold of the site Junkman, and he sold all his equipment for a few $100s to the Junkman. And he did pay his family back years later. But what did the Junkman know and do? This is one of the principles of success. The Junkman, who bought all this stuff and the claim for a couple of $100s, went to the site geologist, sought specialized knowledge, sought expert advice. R.U. Darby didn't do that. He may have tried all different kinds of solutions, but that eluded him, and never again in his life. The geologist told the Junkman, keep going. You're 3 feet from gold. And from that came a book, 3 feet from gold. And that is why so many people give up right before they achieve, because they're not motivated enough to deal with the obstacles. So the why, right? You have to be in love with it. And what happens when the gold dries up? Well, I learned from that. My own personal story, when I was faced with a financial block that would have put me in jail, left me homeless, anybody would, right? Anybody would. And I didn't know what to do. But I did go to bed one night. Well, I went to bed every night. But the next morning one morning I woke up and I went, oh my God, I have $500 in an Edward Jones savings account. And I know my guy there. I'm going to go ask him what to do about this. This was a big tax, law, IRS, like huge, right? And he said, oh, Leslie, this is exactly what you need. You need a CPA who's a tax attorney. Well, who the heck knew there was even such a thing? And he said, I've got the guy's name. Now, keep in mind, I had $500 in that account, which I needed a whole lot more to get out of this one. But the point was, just like the Junkman did with the specialized knowledge and was able to reap that, R.U. Darby never quit again and became one of the greatest salesmen. And I was able to disappear $100,000, and within 3 years bought my own home by myself for the first time. Was it hard? There were hard moments, but my choices were to go to jail or become homeless, because this thing was just way too big. And by the way, it wasn't my fault. A lot of times we get in trouble by circumstances, unfortunately. So that's the lesson. The lesson really to me is, want it so much that whatever obstacles occur, you simply figure a solution and you keep going. And that's persistence. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'll take that for an answer.
Thank you for
Um,
letting me share.
Oh, you bet. I'd say more, but I don't want to. Um, well, I'm ahead.
But those are good stories. This is
Great stories. Great story.
yeah, perfect.
You know, and it,
We're just having fun.
I mean, it doesn't relate to 21st century business in terms of the gold rush days,
No,
but
no,
it
no,
relates
it was
in
perfect.
every other way that
Yeah.
if our purpose for the thing we want is compelling enough to
Yes.
keep us motivated long
Yes.
enough to achieve it, that's progress, that's success. The problem is we're not compelled, we're not in love enough to overcome those obstacles.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Or desperate. That's another thing.
Mhm.
And this is why Colonel Sanders, I'm not going to go through the whole story, okay?
You're gonna make me hungry now.
57 was living in his car. And yeah. He didn't have these massive chicken empire, okay? And Louise Hay, okay, who I'm sure you know, was at 57, passing fraudulent checks, okay, and that's out there too, right? And Stephen Covey never wrote a book. He at 57, and he became, you know who he is. So, to your point, persistence, motivation, and yes, I'll put in desperation, but you can also have that other feeling, I can't, I'm not good enough. And you do end up in the street. You become a victim. You become a total loser. I'm using those words very strongly, but that's how you feel. And instead of, yes, how do I get out of it? What am I going to do? What is that motivation? And that's what you were talking about, Leslie. It's that motivation that says, you know what? Here I am. I have a pot and I have chicken and I make a darn good fried chicken. And someone
I
must
thought you were going to say,
recognize
I
it.
don't have a pot to piss in. That's what I thought you were going to say.
No.
Well, to take it to where I think progress is almost assured is when you enjoy everything you're doing related to it as you're doing it. I mean, I've been on 500 of these. I have fun with each one.
Mhm.
I'm never stressing. I don't even know what we're talking about. Even when we go live, I forget the
Now,
words.
that's clear most of the time.
That's
Yeah.
right. But if it's comfortable and you don't have friction and you're dealing with a tailwind instead of a headwind, you look forward to it. And the other aspect is it isn't as clear as starting here and ending here. It's the people along the way. It's the serendipity of finding yourself somewhere you never planned, being with
Mhm.
somebody you never thought you'd meet, and knowing there's another person tomorrow that you'll meet that you don't know who they are. So the surprise, the mystery every day of unwrapping a new box or a package, and inside of it is, hey, that's new information, right? Hey, that's a new person that's doing some cool stuff. Let's hang out for a while and learn together. And then if you have something, now you have something to offer other people, right? If you have a show, you become more distinctive than a person who doesn't. You're better off being the inviter than the invitee.
You know, Harvey's show, I was just thinking about this again, right?
Mhm.
That was a huge shift for me. What that was me proving my belief that, or, you know, my view, my belief, my longtime belief that franchising is boring. So are stock markets to me. But anyway, that's my own point of view, which I believe, and I believe for a long time. And yet, the way we counteract that is to disprove it. And so, if you've not done mountain climbing before, once you complete the mountain and you've never done it before, oh, I did complete it. So now a new way to look at your ability and deservability. So with Harvey's show, I was pleasantly surprised that I've actually found the content fascinating, that it actually bled into business in general. It really wasn't strictly how do you set up.
Yeah,
So all my preconceived notions. So this is how you prove and you have faith that it is possible to shift your paradigm to, if you're open to it. Now, I wouldn't have normally gone, but I had another reason to go. And therefore I was open to what was going on, and I was shocked
well,
that
here's
I
the thing.
actually liked it.
Yeah, but if you look at it, how many people have movie stars that they follow? And some are in dramatic movies. The same people are doing comedies, right? You follow the person because of their personality, their way of expressing themselves, interacting. What the subject is just a focus, right?
Mhm.
And it
Mhm.
goes to stories, right? It all comes back to maybe franchising. But what it really proves is you can get a show and in 8 weeks be the #1 show if you do it right. It's
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
format of shows too, because it's not just the content. It's like,
But
how is
what
it?
is right, Donald? What is right? And are there different levels of right? And who decides what's right?
Well, I think right could be aligned with professional, respectful, right? That's a good
What
format.
do you call that? You call the not standard operating procedures, but standards. What do you call operational standards on how to do these
I'd
shows?
say I'd say protocol. You know,
Yeah.
there's a way of best practices.
That's the word. That's the word, that you've created best practices and you're an expert at it because you've done it 500 times.
Yeah, but
You have the results.
the people have shaped the demographic of the people, right?
Yeah.
The people we have here have been distilled over 500 shows, and the ones who were too promotional, too crazy, too self-interested didn't make it. The people who were here to accept as well as to provide
Mm.
and support people. I go to Harvey's show every time just to show up. Why? Because I can. And I go to everybody's shows. I remember I go to Think and Grow
When
Rich.
you can.
You know,
Yes.
the point is even if you just make a comment and listen,
That's
you
right.
don't have to be focused, but you're
Yeah.
showing up. And when you show up, people say, "Oh, they're coming to support this. It must be worth something to them. Maybe it'll be worth something to me." And we all rise together, because if we're coming from abundance, right, instead of scarcity, it
Mhm.
makes a whole difference. But my feeling is you create the stress you have by allowing it to happen, right? There's points where you say, "Hey, I got to back out of this thing because this thing is getting too stressful, or these people are getting too agitating," whatever it is, it doesn't matter, you know? But once you
Well,
develop something that does work, and it
right.
works for so many people, and you can exactly say, "Hey, this is where someone started. This is where someone's progressed. How did that happen?" Well, it
Mhm.
took a lot of people, a lot of time. How many shows did Harvey have to
Discipline.
do? Harvey did 5 months here, Fridays and Sundays.
Mhm.
That
Mhm.
wasn't easy. And I know Harvey was on the side of the road half of the time because he was driving from London to home and he couldn't make it. And he's under a whatever,
He's
Beverly.
a hitchhiker.
Oh, let me go through my
Yeah.
comments. Dennis,
Yes, let's go through that.
Dennis says, "Agree, don't give up, but give out." And here we go from Harvey. "All progress starts with a step. Well, I agree, you need training. The first
We
step."
did this one, I
We
think.
did that
Yeah.
one. Oh, I got to mention Carl. Carl's starting a show here, starting next.
Oh, great.
Yeah, we did this one. Yeah.
Terrific.
Yeah, great guy. He's going to be working on the financial side of things. Mainly, his
Good.
first word will be distinction. So
Another boring subject that I need to change my paradigm on.
but
Yeah, for sure.
it's not a boring person. Here's another thing I'm
I
thinking.
didn't say he was a boring person.
No, Leslie. Anyways, here's what I'm thinking is that we have a word of the day. I'm thinking about possibly having a theme of the day, right? That like Tuesdays would be transition because Beverly's into helping transition. Friday, Jeffrey's here. It would probably be leadership, right? So now you have a little bit more attention that aligns with the people here. And then you could say, well, Mondays we do LinkedIn proficiency, let's say, right? And
I
why
like
not?
it.
Right? So
I love that. I think that that's more focused. And what it also is, it has to do with progress, which is what we're talking about, right? That's our word. Okay. And it has to do with collaboration, which is what it's all about.
I
And
love that. I
more,
love that. I love that. And that'll help me when I promote. Like
mhm.
Monday is, transformational day. Tuesday is financial wellness day. Wednesday is, crazy brother-in-law or whatever. I don't
Well,
know. But I love the idea.
yeah, and that way
yeah, of
even
course,
individuals now can pair up based on the likeness of what they do, right? So if someone's a
sure.
geophysicist, matching them up with a life coach isn't going to
It's
bring.
not going to fly. No.
But if you have something that says, "Hey, coaches, come here on Mondays," right? This is when the coaches show up, and Tuesdays because it's one more niche per se, but then it's one more word that aligns with it. So when we really talk about progress, we're really talking about expansion, right? If you took a restaurant that was doing really good and they said, "Hey, we're gonna build an outside patio to get another 20 people here in the summer." Well,
Mhm.
expansion allows progress. They say a fish can only grow as big as the bowl that it's in, right? So I'm saying if you want a bigger fish, you got to have a bigger bowl. Uh, I haven't tested that, but it sounds pretty good, and it does work in the progress discussion. And that's the thing. You don't have to be that smart. You don't have to be that good. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be well-meaning and motivated to keep going forward. It's
Keep
the
moving forward. Yeah.
that's
Just to
the
keep,
progress is the forward movement. The forward thinking doesn't do nothing, right? I'd rather know nothing and do something than know everything and do nothing. And most people are authorities without activity, without motivation. And I think what we bring is our energy, is our fun. Because I'll tell you, when people engage you, it's because of you, and they'll stay with you because of you. If it was just boring stuff, they can Google till they're blue in the face, or go see YouTubes, or go to get free samples. But those are not, and that's what happens most of the time on LinkedIn. Everybody cobbles together a meal of scraps, and it gets them through the next day instead of saying, "Hey, I deserve a fine cooked meal from someone who really knows what they're doing and serves it up really well." That's fine dining. People should get into fine LinkedIning. You
So you're asking people to overcome the fear of poverty is effectively that's where you're moving because I think that probably one of the major reasons that people sample and take appetizers and et cetera is because they have a fear of not having enough money. Now, is it
Mhm.
real? There's plenty of abundance, but if you believe, right, and it's also your values, you might spend $5 or $6 every single day on a Starbucks coffee. And yet, if that's 3 times 4, it's $120 a month. But if you were faced with hiring someone to help you grow in self-development, that's too much. So then there's this other thing that is based on your perception and that you don't deserve it. That's another thing. I really don't deserve it. Yet you do deserve the $5 Starbucks. So, you can't really do generalizations, I don't think, but it is the fear of poverty. There are 6 basic fears, and poverty and fear of criticism are the 2 top ones. Well, if I do that and I don't make it, what are people going to think of me? Which feeds
Right.
into those old beliefs. So you really can disprove your own beliefs if you just be a little bit open. And that's what I will do. I will go to things that I don't have any interest, and then I'll find interest or I'll meet people there. So while I joke about franchising and financing and taxes, I get that there are people that love that stuff, right? And that's why Harvey's show has done so well, because it doesn't matter what Leslie thinks about franchising at all. It has to do with who Harvey is being and who he's attracting. And that's
Well,
the
and
other
here's,
part.
Right.
and here's the
R-
thing, is it is applying best practices. It is applying what works for you to help work for other people, right? You got to be the tester first before you can be the server, in a sense, right? You can't sell what you don't buy or use. And I
Yeah.
think that's so important. The other element that I think is essential for progress is a philosophy. I'm always happy, but I'm never satisfied. So when I look even at this show, it's like, how do we spin this up a little faster? How do we blend it with more people? How do we get it rolling? You got to keep it up
Well, I
tempo.
don't know that that's dissatisfied. I think it's the love of progress. I think
No,
that's
I didn't say dissatisfied. I'm
yeah.
always happy, but never satisfied. So I'm
Oh, but
always.
never. But okay, so you're always in a
I'm pushing the
progressive
envelope.
mindset.
I'm interested to see what this can do. It's just like you build a car, and at
Yeah.
a certain point, you got to take it out of the garage and say, I want to run it. I want to see what this got in it and what its capability is, because you can always back it down. You can always go back to yesterday. It's a show. That's all it is. And if the show is all a conversation, how much thought do you
Exactly.
put into your conversations every day? When you go to the grocery store, you don't think about what you're going to talk to if you meet somebody there, or if you talk to the lady at the register, right? You're just natural. And if you can have a show that's natural, that's progress, right? I know how intimidated people are when they think of live shows and going on an audience.
That's the fear of criticism,
Yeah, but
right?
Well,
Because
everybody's
there's always judgment. There's always judgment. And if you have a passion, then you have to overstep that. And that's in everything. That's whether applying for a job, that's whether you're going out with LinkedIn Live, anything that you do, you're going to be judged. It doesn't really matter. So that's so true, Leslie. What
but
you were
it's the
also saying.
self-judgment. To me, also, it's our self-judgment. Yes, other
Yes,
people are going to judge you.
yes.
But here's the
And
thing. There'll be as many people who will like you. Isn't it interesting that we notice the people that judge us, but we don't look for the people that love us? So, so that's that
well,
belief drives us to
that
find that.
but that goes back to what you were saying about the money, right? Right back to that. When you're giving something for nothing, right? Whether it's a master class, where mine is coming up, okay, and it is for free, okay. People, I feel, are entitled to check you out. There is such distrust out there. People don't know who is sincere, who is going to take their
And we
money.
don't do our due diligence either.
Right.
Especially, I've noticed women, because I've worked with women a lot. We're getting better at this, but even myself, right? If I really like you and you're in marketing, I may not do the due diligence if you and I resonate. And I've spent a lot of money, invested a lot of money
Right.
with people that didn't know much more than me and were kind of learning on my dime. We were learning together. So, part of that is that we don't do efficient due diligence. We
Right.
don't check and see what kind of results. So if you want to start a show, you could, you would want to work with Donald, who's done 500, right? Why wouldn't you go to an expert?
Right.
And I say expert, he's the research is in
Yes.
actual research. This isn't heart. Like, I really like Donald, so I'm going to invest in his program. Donald gets results. He's a nice
Yes.
guy. but he
Yes,
gets the results.
yes, yes.
You're,
I'm going to
Everyone,
invest. Yeah, go ahead.
no,
everyone
no, go ahead.
has to do, everyone has to do due diligence. If
Yes.
you want to progress in anything, you have to eventually take the risk. And guess what? You have to pay to play. You really do. Okay. You can't just constantly keep taking because you're just going to get those little bits. And it's not the full deal. Ha. So,
Ooh,
Leslie,
there's
you're
something
funny.
else. There's something
You're
else
funny.
here. There's something else here. So a lot of people will say, people aren't investing in me. Why can't I get clients? They want free stuff. And I've had people say this to me. I give away good stuff. And yet when it comes for them to invest, they don't do it. Then I will say, what about you? Are you investing? And sure enough, they're expecting people to invest in them when they are not investing themselves. So we are the cause in the problem. We may be giving away too much for free, where we've set a pattern and people know they don't have to. At the same
That's a
time, there's
problem.
only 2 or 3 people out of 100 that are willing to go the whole mile. I know that sounds crazy, but there's really only a few people who will follow a process and stick with it. And you're looking at 3 right here.
Well, here's the thing is, at a certain point, waiting doesn't make a lot of sense for anything, right? And if and most people, the distrust is in themselves.
That's
They
right.
don't, they don't, they're distrusting other people because it's a reflection of their lack of confidence.
Exactly. They're looking for the things that they don't like about themselves in other people. But if you start to look at the greatness in others, it actually expands your own greatness, right? So we can teach ourselves to do these things.
Well, and plus, if
Oh, yes.
someone's
Oh,
leaning on you, depending on you, and you're supporting them, and they become very successful, it's a credit to you too. So that
course.
success might have been supported by you, but it's confirmed by them. So the next person could say, "Hey, here's a person who started this way, did this, now is here. That's tremendous progress." And you can even talk to the person, right? This third party validation is so much better than boasting. Harvey comes back with
We did
Leslie,
this.
you're right, but it's up to the storytellers to make the tale interesting. If 10 people go to a party, you may only have one interesting story, but it's the same party. For sure, Dennis comes back with a great story, has Gloria, not sorry. Uh, Kelly's here through the awesome journey. I know there was some comment issues. Okay, trying to comment on YouTube now through LinkedIn isn't working for me. And it's just that's live. And once you learn that you're riding the rapids on LinkedIn, on Restream, on StreamYard, you get flexible and you find different ways. But I'll say one thing for Kelly: she's been typing to me during this whole thing, telling me what's working, what isn't, and that goes a long way, And I know recognizing Harvey goes a long way because being recognized in front of your peers makes a big difference. And everybody who's doing it the right way is softening the market for everybody else who's following behind them, right? It's easier for someone to bust the door open and the next person to just have to walk through it. And the key is telling people where you are and where you're not. I can go this far, I can't go any further. Well, if we can get you the other half of the way somehow, would that be good? And sometimes that's all you need. Here we go with Kelly. While the franchise show may be niche, there's always information that applies to all business people. Harvey is killing it. And there's not enough success. I am so happy when I see people get their award, their moment in the sun. And, how many times did people say, it took me 10 years to become an overnight success, right? Because the people who now know me only saw the success and didn't see me working in a restaurant or doing whatever I had to do to keep alive while I was doing it. Okay, we just covered that. Dennis says, agree, we can do more with less stress. Let's see. Dennis comes back with agree, a great story, sharing your glory. Carrie comes back with thanks for that, Leslie. So everybody's thanking Leslie today.
I think that was the story about
Uh-huh.
3 feet from gold.
Yeah.
Right. And then seeking expert advice. So, like, if you really hit a brick wall, don't forget that there are other people that actually have gone before you. And I think they're probably pretty happy to help you navigate that obstacle.
And to
Well,
ask.
I
Yes.
want
That's the hardest thing.
but once you start doing it, it's the easiest thing to keep doing,
Yeah.
right? And if
That's
and
good.
people want to hear what you have to ask. Doesn't guarantee you're going to get it, but at least they know you're in need. At least they know you're on the hunt, and maybe they know somebody, maybe they know something, So people are thinking, well,
Absolutely.
it's an
Yeah.
absolute. If I ask them for money, they're going to say yes or no. And a lot of times, you ask for money, you're going to get advice. You ask for advice, you might get some money. And that's right. And people are different when it comes to money. It's just something about them.
That's because very few people really believe that abundance is ours. They don't believe it. But look, they've never believed it. The only
Well,
people who are not born with a poverty mindset are people that were born into wealth and never hear we can't afford that over and over and over again. You got your Trumps, your Rockefellers,
yeah,
people who
but you're right.
And a lot of Gen Zers.
Well, here's the funny thing. I'll share a story I did with my kids. Is before kids, we had a dog, and the dog, we kept the food out all day long, and the dog never gained an ounce. Why? Because it could always eat anytime it wanted. It was always there. So when the kids got a little bit older, I put like 3 or 4 bowls around the house full of pennies and nickels. I think for $12, it looked like it was a treasure trove, right? And I always said, we have plenty of money. Don't worry about it. And if you ever need it, we have all this stuff laying around, right? And they never coveted money.
I love that.
You know,
That's rare, but you're a rare bird, let's face it.
well, I learned from my dog, the lesson of putting out the food. I wasn't that smart. I was just observant.
Well, that was biomimicry. So here's what you did. You observed something in nature and then you copied it. That's biomimicry. Nature is filled. So your dog taught you.
It's the simple understanding.
Yes.
That it's what money means to certain people. There's people with 100 million that they never have enough. And there's people that got $100 in the bank and they're so grateful for every little thing in their life.
Yeah.
So how much money do you need to feel like money's not an issue anymore?
Well,
And I think
it's a good question.
It all goes down to what we were talking about, which is the scarcity mindset. And if you have a scarcity mindset, it's not about money at all. It's always you don't have enough. And it doesn't have to be enough.
So it could be money, it could be food, it could be clothes, it could be.
Yes,
I got it.
Yes,
yeah, very good.
Yes. It's like it's just not enough. More. And we could talk about greed, and that goes in a whole other area. But the fact is, those people aren't happy because they're not enjoying it.
Well, let me ask you something. You're a therapist, and so I want to ask about this. This is a phenomenon. My children, and I'm sure there are other people like this because I've had these conversations. My kids always had everything, right? I mean, we made sure they had everything they wanted pretty much, and certainly what they needed. And yet there was always this challenge for who got first, who got to sit in the driver's seat, who got the first piece of cake, who got the last piece. Why is that? Because there was no scarcity. There was no lack. So why do kids do that when they already have enough? Do you understand that? And
Yeah,
can you answer
absolutely.
that, please?
Can I give you an example? I
Oh,
mean,
I
we
want
have
to know
time.
why it's so.
It's
Yes.
that simple. We all see our lives differently. So the parent that's giving it all enough, giving everything, they think they're doing a great job. The two little sisters that are sitting together at the table, right? One is kind of heavy and the other one is, just great. And she doesn't eat enough actually because she's running around and playing. And mom is trying to feed her. And she loves both children the same. And I'm doing it really quickly. But the other child will think, look, mom is paying more attention to her. Only because mom is giving the other child more food or not really giving her more
So where
food, but
does love
talking to
fit
her.
in? I
Love,
wasn't thinking about food or anything. I
okay,
was thinking
I'm
about
just
love.
giving an example.
Yeah,
Love
yeah.
is the child can easily say, and it all goes back to very young, mom loves her more. Okay. And then she's going to start thinking, a birthday, did mom give me the same kind of thing that she gave her? And it just starts playing this sibling rivalry stuff for absolutely no reason because it's not what the parents are doing, it's how the child perceives. And we could all be in the same family, but every child is living a different life because they're
But before
perceiving
you're
it.
6, you don't have a conscious mind before you're 6.
Absolutely. Before
So it's
you're
all
six,
based on belief through
it's it's
repetition.
it's no, it's not only conscious, it's unconscious
It's
too.
unconscious, right?
Yes, because what happens is when you're living in this world, you start feeling the vibrations of other
Mm.
people, you get the vibes, and you don't have the language to interpret what you're actually saying, and you can't even express yourself. And as you get older, you may feel, I must not express myself because maybe I'll be hurt. Why? Because maybe they saw someone get beat and they interpreted it, and maybe they won't get hurt. But that's why conversation is so important. That's why speaking with one another and just letting that child have a voice, and the child can be the adult voice. And instead of telling them, no, it's not so, asking them why do you think? And that opens the whole door. And you have to be open to hearing it because sometimes, it's hard to take as a
That's a
parent.
great explanation. Thank you.
Very
I
Well,
would
good.
good
love to hear
question,
about that.
Leslie. Great,
Thank you.
great answer, Beverly.
Yes.
And we touched on so many elements on our way to the definition of progress.
Mhm.
And it's a lot of things that you create the locks on the doors that don't allow people in, let alone protect you from the outside. And it's access. And too many people say, well, if I ask this, that's what they're going to say. Well, how do you know they're not changing? How do you know their mindset hasn't improved since last time? Maybe it's going to take 4 times to ask from somebody. Who's dependent on who? Are you going to measure how fast they respond to your ask versus, hey, why don't you think about it? Why don't we come back and talk about it again? Only you create yes, no, absolute situations. How you
But
enter.
okay, but kids before they have a conscious mind, their belief system is their parents' belief system. So to your point and to what Sonia is saying here, the subconscious is what holds all the beliefs that we receive from our parents through repetition in spaced intervals over time with the emotion attached, primarily negative. So if the mother and father are judgmental and repeatedly judgmental, so will those children be even before they get a conscious mind. Now they're operating automatically based on the beliefs of their parents. So that's even more clear, Beverly,
It's
as far as what's having them operate in contention with each other before they have a conscious mind. They have got their parents' beliefs through repetition, so it's already preconceived for them.
it is, and you have also societal priorities. Sonia, you mentioned that.
Yeah.
And it's the child's interpretation as well, because they start making value judgments too. We're not talking about, infants. You're starting to wonder, you're starting to learn, you're starting to be curious. If you
When they
get
get to be
flack
about
for
6,
somebody, It's usually under the age of 8, but we can go on and on with this one, Dawn,
Yeah,
can't we?
well, here's the thing. I think there's a point where people find independence of where they used to be tethered to or who they used to get influenced by. And some people move a little bit more aggressively. Other people have some hangups and issues that won't let them get out there. But the thing is, you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know if something's going to work until you try it. And you also know, just like Dennis says, if you don't ask, the answer is always no. Why are you saying no for someone else? You've got enough that you can play 3 roles in your thinking and your life, and maybe they'll make a mistake in your favor. You always have that chance, right? Maybe they woke up happy. Maybe someone won the lottery yesterday, and now your $100 request is like nothing. You don't know, but you do know when you try something. And usually, the best thing about trying is you're going to hit the wall. But it tells you what the wall feels like, where the wall is, what you got to do to get over the wall, and now you're into action, right? Because nothing's overnight. And if it is, it's overnight for everybody. So it means very little at that point. If everybody can solve it that easily, it couldn't have been that big of an issue. And maybe you're not shooting high enough. There's so many people who want to be with less because they feel more about comparison. You know, they said there's 2 ways to build the biggest building. Leslie's got to run. But I'll tell you that story later. It's 101. Thank you very much, everybody. I'm glad all these comments came through. See you later, Leslie. See you later, audience. Come back tomorrow. It's Wednesday, and we're going to have another great show. Actually, Dave Snell is here from Kelly. With that, bye-bye. See you later.